Weilà raga, come state ragazzi? Spero tutto bene. Welcome to another lesson in the Zero to Hero Italian Grammar series, where we've been spending a lot of time taking a look at Italian grammar from the most basic of concepts and gradually working our way up to the most advanced. As you may have noticed with these last couple of lessons, we've taken a bit of a shift from just looking at individual parts of grammar to now looking at finer points. That's generally how I like to do things. I get, the bulk of the stuff out of the way in the beginning, or really, I guess it's been the majority of the series. But for lack of perhaps a better term, we're now at the point where we can start looking at those finer points because we've got all of the tools in our toolbox. Now let's start using them. Let's head on over to the digital whiteboard. Today we're going to be looking at two verbs that are very commonly used in Italian, and we're going to be comparing them. So, sapere versus conoscere. Okay. So these are two verbs you're going to use all the time. They are two verbs that have very similar functions. So what we're going to try to do today is take a look at how they're similar, how they're different, and make sure we're able to distinguish those things. Okay? So let's begin first with sapere, and we're going to look at this in a variety of examples in different parts of grammar. Let's begin simply with what it means. So sapere means to know, but it is not for knowing people. So remember, not for people. Not for people. Instead, sapere is to know for facts. It can be ideas. It could even be to know how to do skills. To know how to do something, we'll say. How to do something. And I think we're going to leave it at that. I also have my notes over here I want to make sure I'm consulting with. Yeah. Cool. General knowledge, I'm also going to say. General knowledge. Okay. Cool. Sweet. So that's how we use sapere. Now let's put it into some context, shall we? And then we're going to define conoscere a little later on. Let's say I want to say to you, sai per caso la risposta? Sai per caso la risposta? What does that mean? It means, do you know, by chance, the answer? Do you know the answer by chance? So we're asking someone if they just have general knowledge about something, right? Do you know the answer by chance? Sai per caso la risposta? Sai la risposta per caso? Per caso sai la risposta? You can move around these words. All right, cool. How about if I also just say simply, non lo so? Just a different context. Just want to show you this. Non lo so. What does that mean? I don't know. Non lo so. I don't know. Technically, we have a direct object pronoun here. That is basically like implying I don't know it. It's so common, though, just to say this as a phrase. So you just memorize it. Non lo so. Can you see non so to say I don't know? Yes. This is very common as well. What is really the difference? With this sentence, this first one up here, with non lo so, it feels complete because I've got a verb and an object. In this right here, it can feel a little incomplete because it's just a negation and a verb. Non so. I don't know, and then you're kind of left feeling, what is it that you don't know, right? And then you could say, non so la risposta. I don't know the answer, for example. So here we're using it as so in the io conjugation. Up here with the highlight, we're using it as sai. That's the to conjugation. Generally speaking, sapere is an irregular verb. I'll show it to you now conjugated. That way we can see what it looks like. But just so we have a little bit of our bearings about us, non lo so, up here, I know I've got a lot of arrows going on. This is the most common phrase for saying I don't know. Stick with that. Let's take a look at sapere in the present tense, shall we? So present tense conjugation. Okay, we've got io so, tu sai, lui, lei, sa. Noi sappiamo. Sappiamo. Voi sapete. And finally, loro sanno. So this is how you would say no for all of our pronouns. I know, you know, he, she, it knows, and so on. Always remember that when we get to the third person singular over here, we don't have a pronoun in Italian for it. It is simply built into the form of the verb. So if I said, for example, maybe you don't know the gender of someone's dog, right? Sometimes in English, we'll use it. Sometimes we'll use they. You know, like when you're talking about one of your friends and you're like, oh yeah, you know, I was talking to one of my friends and you know what they told me? You know, we kind of use that as like a gender neutral pronoun. So in Italian, they don't use the loro. They don't use the third person plural form. They just use the third person singular. Because the it, the sort of gender neutral version, is built into the verb already. So if I said, for example, che bel cane, you know, what a cute dog, what a nice dog, sa camminare molto bene. Sa camminare molto bene. Sort of a silly little phrase, but let's just stick with it. Che bel cane, sa camminare molto bene. Okay. What does this mean here? This can be translated to as either he, she, or it knows how to walk very well. That's what that molto bene is, very well. Okay. So it can go for any of the three, he, she, or it. Now, if you're specifically using lui or lei, then you're specifically saying he or she. But if you just want to say it, like, wow, that thing, it really works well. It really knows how to work well, or something like that. It really knows how to walk well. Sa camminare molto bene. That's it. That's all you need to do. And that goes for any verb. Any part of Italian, any verb. If you just want to say it, put the verb in the third person singular form, and you're good to go. Cool. All right, nice. Let's move on. Keeping in this theme of non lo so, this is your present tense version for I don't know. I don't know. How about if it's in the past? Most commonly, when you're saying, I don't know, or I didn't know, you would say non lo sapevo. Non lo sapevo. I didn't know. Now, why am I saying this is the most common one? Generally speaking, if you think about it, when we say I don't know, when we say I didn't know, rather, in the past, I'm not telling you at what point in time I didn't know something. I'm leaving it open. It's just generally speaking in the past, whatever was happening in the background, I didn't know. So therefore, it requires the imperfetto. Now, of course, I'll be linking down below in the description all the corresponding videos that what I'm trying to say is that correspond to these themes, that correspond to these topics. So I'll have the present tense, I'll have the direct object pronouns, I'll have also the imperfetto, all linked down below. You can find them in the playlist I've got on my channel. I have these videos in two of my playlists, the Zero to Hero Italian Grammar Series one, and then the Italian videos, Learn Italian Videos in Order playlist. Some of the Zero to Hero videos are not in the same order in that, because that playlist has its own order, and then the Zero to Hero has its own order. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, we're using the imperfect for that reason. Just generally, wow, I didn't know. I never knew. I didn't know that. Perfect. Just do that. Non lo sapevo. Cool. Now, I want to talk for a moment about using the conditional and how the conditional is often used when you're softening things. You're being polite. Let's say you told somebody, non saprei, non saprei. And then maybe I would add something at the end, or non lo saprei. You could also say, non lo saprei. Okay. What is this now using the present conditional? When we use the conditional, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in that video, which I'll also link down below. The conditional is often used to soften things. For example, just touching on a different point. Let's say you were like some of the Italians who write to me to ask questions about English. Generally speaking, when they write to me, they'll say, avrei una domanda. Avrei una domanda. And I remember when I was first teaching, I'd never seen this before because it just never came up. No one ever really had to come up to me and say, Tom, avrei una domanda. They would just say, Tom, ho una domanda. Mi puoi aiutare? It would just be like that with your friends and family and people you know. It's very polite, I later found out, because I was asking, what is this avrei? I would have a question. This right here is a polite way to say, I have a question. I'm just going to put a Q, okay? I have a question. Because they don't know if you're open to responding. They don't know if they are permitted to ask you something. It's sort of that is what's going on in the mind of the Italian speaker. It's just built into the way they speak. So if you ever want to be polite and you're not too sure someone will answer your question, you can say, oh, ma mi scusi, avrei una domanda. You know, something like that. Vorrei un'informazione. Vorrei un'informazione, just as a little side note. Vorrei un'informazione. Informazione is I just like to ask you something. I'm just looking for some information. I'm just inquiring for something. I'm calling to inquire about. Sort of the equivalent of using that. So avrei una domanda. In a similar way, when we're using non saprei or non lo saprei, this is when we're being polite saying, oh, look, I really wouldn't know. I don't know. Like, why are you asking me? I really don't know. I'm not the right person to come to, but it's polite. Okay? So I would just look at this as polite way for saying, I don't know. I don't know. Very kind, very polite, very soft. I wouldn't know. I really wouldn't know. Just like that. Non saprei. Now, your tone could change how you're getting this across. All right? That's a different question. Anyway, let's move on. Non saprei. And obviously you could add something more onto that, should you wish. I want to now show you the imperative. Not the imperative, actually. I don't want to do that. I want to do the congiuntivo. That's what I wanted to say. Okay. Let's first begin with making an exclamation in the congiuntivo. Che tu sappia che, for example, sei un grande. Okay? I think I can fit that in here. Yeah. Che tu sappia che sei un grande. What does this mean? This is like saying, may you know. May you know that you're great, that you're a big deal, that you're special. Sort of that idea. Che tu sappia che sei grande. Will you use this a lot? Just depends on how you speak. I want to bring it up just because it's something useful. We can do this with any verb in Italian. Just begin your statement with che. It's almost like you're thinking about penso che or spero che, mi auguro che, vorrei che, something like that. Voglio che. So anyway, che tu sappia che sei un grande. May you know that you are great. We do this a lot in Italian if you want to say che tu abbia, non lo so, tante belle cose. Tante belle cose. This is like saying, may you have many nice things. May you have many nice things. Tante belle cose is also just used in Italian when you're trying kind of like to say, like, I want the best for you. In a way, okay? You know how we use that expression in English? They have it as well in Italian, but like, tante belle cose. Like when you're just wishing someone well, you could just say tante belle cose. Many good things. Like I really wish the best for you. I want many good things to come your way. So this is a part of Italian, a way of using the congiuntivo with any verb. As we can see here, we're using avere. Che tu abbia tante belle cose. You could even put ricevere there instead, that you may receive many nice things. Cool, right? Cool. I believe this is called the congiuntivo esclamativo. Congiuntivo, which is just a fancy term. It's not like an additional form of the congiuntivo. Esclamativo. Pretty sure it's that. Could be wrong. but doing a quick search online, you'll find it immediately. Yeah, could be esortivo. I always get those words confused. But anyway, something to that effect. Cool. Che tu sappia. May you know. May you know. Now, keeping in line with that whole sappia form, let's now do non so. Oh, credo che. Yeah. Let's do penso che tu sappia la risposta. There we go. Okay. I think you know the answer. All right, I'm just going to write ANS. I think you know the answer. Penso che tu sappia. Cool. So as we can see here, this is pretty simple, right? We're just taking a look at different forms of Italian, looking at sapere in several different forms, just to kind of see a whole nice overview of it. We're keeping it really simple, just kind of blowing through the examples, all right? Penso che tu sappia la risposta using the congiuntivo presente. I'll have that video link down below. What can we also say using the congiuntivo imperfetto? Pensavo che tu, I'm just going to say now, lo sapessi. I thought that you knew it. Pensavo che tu lo sapessi. Now, I'm using lo here. I'm kind of thinking that it's separated from the example above. If I wanted these two examples to be related, I would say la. Pensavo che tu la sapessi. But if you just want to say in general, we're not referring to a specific thing or not taking the time to do gender and number agreement. Pensavo che tu lo sapessi. I thought you knew it. I thought you knew it. Pensavo che tu lo sapessi. That's it. Now, in keeping with that idea, when we looked at that congiuntivo esclamativo, just the che tu sappia, we could also do this. Sapessi quanto è difficile. Ok, difficile. Sapessi quanto è difficile. There's no pensavo che, there's no even che here, I'm just beginning. Sapessi quanto è difficile. Sometimes you can bring this together and say quante. Sapessi quanto è difficile. Sapessi quanto è difficile. This is like saying, if you only knew. Oops, not no. If you only knew how difficult. If you only knew how difficult it is. Se solo sapessi quanto è difficile. If only you knew how difficult it is. Sapessi. Sometimes people just say, sapessi. Sometimes they just do that. Sapessi. That could take on a bunch of different meanings. Just depends, because sapessi is both the io and tu form. So it could be, if you only knew. If I only knew. Had I known that. Wow. It can kind of take on that feeling as well. But yeah. Sapessi quanto è difficile, sapessi quanto è bello, sapessi quanto mi piace. Any expression like that. If you only knew. Now, can you do the whole phrase? Se solo tu sapessi che. Sure. You could do that. But this is just getting right to the point. Perfectly standard, perfectly fine to say. Very nice. So, let's take a look at this. If I want to say, so che vuol dire. So che vuol dire means I know what it means. So I know what it means. However, if I say non so che, we then have to say che voglia dire. Why is that? I don't know what it means. Okay, means. What it means. Here is the simple rule. Sapere che is not, that means equals with the slash means it does not equal, okay? It is not a congiuntivo trigger phrase, meaning it doesn't trigger the congiuntivo. Oops. That is a mess over there. What is that? It's not a congiuntivo trigger phrase. However, non sapere che is. Okay? Non sapere che is a congiuntivo trigger phrase. It is. When you say non sapere che in any of the verb tenses, it requires the congiuntivo. For example, non so chi sia qui. I don't know who's here. Non sapevo chi fosse. Non sapevo chi fosse. Let's just say that. Non sapevo chi fosse. I don't know who that was. I didn't know who that was. There we go. Non sapere che requires the congiuntivo. When we're using it in the affirmative, it does not. So chi è? I know who it is. Sapevo chi era. I knew who it was. Doesn't require it. So that's all you have to remember. Sapere che in the affirmative, no congiuntivo after. Non sapere che in the negative, you need the congiuntivo. Let's do conoscere. So conoscere is to know, but this is a familiar know. Familiar. Always think familiarity. Always think that with conoscere. I would say to know people, or to be familiar with something, someone, or someplace. Okay? Familiary. Just familiar. Think of it as the familiar know. So sapere is the fact know, conoscere is the familiar know. All right? So if I told you, for example, conosco Marco, that means I know Marco. I could then add on to this, e lui conosce Alessia, and he knows Alessia. Noi ci conosciamo. We know each other. Noi ci conosciamo, using it as a reflexive here. We know each other. Cool, right? If I want to say I never knew someone, like I didn't know Marco, non lo conoscevo. Non lo conoscevo. I didn't know him. I didn't know him. Easy, right? Non lo conoscevo. Okay. We didn't know each other. Non ci conoscevamo. Non ci conoscevamo. Not with an I. Conoscevamo. We didn't know each other. We didn't know each other. Cool. Non ci conoscevamo. Ma ora sì, but now we do. Let's put that in. Ma ora sì. And the C as a yes has to have an accent mark. So that's why I always do that. I don't think I've mentioned that. But now we do. Now notice in Italian I didn't say ma ora ci conosciamo. In Italian we just say ma ora sì. And that is the equivalent of saying but now we do. Because even if you think about it in English, what does but now we do mean on its own? But now we do. Oh, are you guys going to go do something? We're going to go do something? No, it's a rafforzativo. It's for emphasis. It's to reinforce something. See how that is? Bet you never thought that much about that, right? See, when you learn another language, you get better at your native language. Cool, right? Cool. But now we do. Ma ora sì. Or but now yes, if you really wanted to say that. But I don't think anybody talks that way. Now, I also want to talk about this in terms of a place, right? I could say, conosco benissimo. Benissimo. I really know something well. Conosco benissimo Roma. I really know Rome well. Come le mie tasche. Come le mie tasche. Do you guys know what that expression is? Come le mie tasche. Like the back of my hand. Like the back of my hand. In Italian, we say, I know it like my pockets. In English, like the back of my hand. Conosco benissimo Roma, come le mie tasche. Or conosco Roma come le mie tasche. I know Rome really well. I know it like the back of my hand. Cool, right? Very nice. So it can also be used for a place because you have a sense of familiarity with a place like you do with a person. See how it's different from sapere? I also want to touch on using conoscere for a language. We use it as well for that. Someone could say, let's use a negation. Non conosco. Non is the proper pronunciation. I'm doing it too English here. Non conosco. Non conosco molto bene. Molto. Molto bene. Sometimes I do the bene. I do it too open. It's bene. Non conosco molto bene. Non conosco molto bene. Let's say lo spagnolo. Lo spagnolo. This means I don't know Spanish very well. Very well. I don't know Spanish very well. I don't really know it. See how that's different from conoscere? How that's different from sapere? Meglio dire? That's what I'm actually trying to say. It's different from sapere. Sapere is for facts. This is having that sense of conoscenza. Conoscenza is familiarity. Yeah. Familiarity. Yeah. That's what conoscenza is. To have conoscenza can also be to have like an acquaintance. It can also be that. An acquaintance. Acquaintance. You know, if you have an acquaintance, it's a person you know, but you're maybe not friends. Get it? See? Whereas sapienza is knowledge. That's different. DGE. There we go. Sapienza is knowledge. It's different. Different than conoscere. So anyway, non conosco molto bene lo spagnolo. I don't have that sense of acquaintancy with Spanish. I'm not familiar with it. Nice, right? Beautiful. Let's put it in this way now because I want to show you another usage of sapere that we kind of touched on but didn't dig too deep into it. I could say, conosco bene, conosco bene l'italiano. Lo so parlare molto bene. Molto bene. What does this mean? Using conosco and so in the same sentence. What do we got going on here? This means I know Italian well. I know how to speak it very well. There's also another way to translate this, and it's not coming to mind. I know how to speak it very well, or I can speak it very well. You can also translate this to I can. So, I can speak it very well, okay? Now, let's go over this for a moment. What's going on here? Okay. Conosco bene l'italiano. I know Italian well as if it were a person. I have that sense of conoscenza. I have that sense of, it's like an acquaintance. It's familiarity. It's almost like it were a person. Almost as if it were a person. And then when we're using sapere, lo so parlare molto bene. What we're saying here is I have a skill. I know how to do something. I believe we mentioned at the top of the video, it's also used for skills. I know how to do something. If you saw our video on potere and riuscire, I'm pretty sure I spoke about potere is when you have like a physical ability to do something. If you cannot do something, if you say non posso parlare l'italiano, and if you say non so parlare l'italiano, these are two different things. This first one with posso is I physically can't. This one with sapere is I just don't know how. One is ability, because potere also means can or to be able to. Sapere means to know how to do something, to have knowledge. That's the difference. So this second one right here, I would say, is most appropriate for most situations if you just don't know how to speak a language. It's not that you have no ability to study it and figure it out. You just don't know how. Nice, right? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking it out. Be sure to check out all of the other videos in our Zero to Hero Italian Grammar series, along with all of the other videos on my channel, such as my videos in my podcast, other videos I've done on other topics, language learning, tip videos, you name it. I've got it there. And if you ever want to become one of my students in my live weekly group lessons that I teach on Zoom, check out the link in the top line of the description. Always remember to spread the love, guys, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Ciao!